Welcome to the MIT Beyond Food webinar series. This is Andrew coming to you live from MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. For those who are joining us for the first time, this is a webinar series that showcases the diversity of challenges you could solve at the next MIT Beyond Food Bootcamp in Taiwan this September. You will acquire a practical understanding of the MIT innovation frameworks and new venture leadership skills. You will also gain access to the Taiwanese and MIT innovation ecosystems and acquire insights into new and emerging models. So far, we've been exploring the diversity of the Beyond Food innovation lifecycle and journey. We'll be also taking questions. There will be a chat at the bottom on the side of your screen, and we'll be reviewing questions towards the end of the discussion. So today we have with us Terence, Chia, co-founder of the Autopoetic Labs, Sophia Lin, co-founder of Keel.io, and Charles Nichols, CTO and co-founder of Sun Culture. Welcome. So Terence, let's start with you. Can you tell us about yourself and what you're doing?
Hi everyone, Terence. I'm originally from Malaysia and I'm alumni of the Bootcamp Class 2, and now I'm also on the mentorship team as well. So I'm a serial entrepreneur, and Autopoetic Labs is food and agriculture startup that I spent 5 years of my time trying to reverse the environmental damage that the mushroom industry has been causing across Asia, especially. So most people call me mushroom guy as well. So now I'm working on two new startups. So I'm definitely very honored to be invited today to share with you my experience.
Sophia.
Sure. Thanks for having me here. I'm Sophia. I graduated from MIT Sloan MBA class of 2012. After MBA, I did investing and consulting role focusing on agriculture and food. I'm currently running my own tech startup. As a proud Taiwanese and MIT alum, I encourage everyone to apply and participate in MIT Beyond Food Bootcamp. You will get a lot of feedback, a lot of experience, and meet a lot of great people. And again, glad to be here, and I look forward to the discussion.
Charles, are you there? All right, I think Charles has some internet connectivity issues, so we'll go ahead. So let's talk about Terence. Oh, hey, Charles.
My network is strong enough to speak right now, but let me know if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, Charles, we can definitely hear you. So we'll start with Terence, and then hopefully your internet connection will be better shortly. All right, Terence, take it away.
Okay.
Okay. Well, basically, I spent 5 years working on mushrooms. Well, basically, the reason is because it took, in the mushroom production industry, it needs 4 tons of wood to produce just 1 ton of mushroom. So basically, to grow every new batch of mushrooms, we are cutting away a lot of trees, destroying a lot of forests. So by accident, I found out the practices when I was in Myanmar running my first business. Then after that, so I did some research and feasibility of finding alternative solutions to grow mushrooms. Then I sold my shares in Myanmar, my business in Myanmar. Then I invested all the cash profits to start this business. So running through a lot of experiments, then we find that in Southeast Asia, with the materials that available to us in bulk and provide potential, exciting potential yield that could be feasible and potential material that replace wood completely is coffee grounds. So after that, we try to talk to a lot of farmers. How can they produce food at the same time keeping forest intact and protect the environment. Of course, we face a lot of problems along the way, but the yield keep getting better and better every day. So we had a 2.5 year successful pilot. We achieved break even in the field operation. We at the time last year when we decided to shut down, I will talk a little bit about why we shut down, but at the time when we guys decided to shut down, we were delivering about 150 to between 150 to 200 kilograms of mushrooms every day to restaurants and food wholesalers across our town, and we basically had more than 80% of market shares in our town. And we also received a big pre-order that if upon delivery, we will have our revenue grow by 10 times annually. So growing mushrooms and run the demo farm for 2.5 years actually the purpose is to demonstrate to farmers, especially small medium farmers, that new methodology, new way of cultivation mushroom does work, but actually the real play is actually the IoT system that can automate the irrigations and to create a whole new data library to run through the IoT system, so that the system will respond and the algorithm will respond to real-time data, so that we can churn out the maximum amount of yield with minimum effort, and so that the farming community can adopt a new technology without a hassle.
That is a very fascinating story there. Thank you, Terence. So to recap, really what you're saying is that you were concerned about the environmental deforestation in the environment in order to grow food and to create food production. And what you were looking for was a way to convert waste into resources. In one of our previous talks, one of our previous webinars, Benjamin Canning was talking about, what we're really talking about here is about taking waste and replacing the word waste into the word resources. And so that's particularly what you're doing with the used coffee grounds. What traditionally people would do with coffee grounds is to take them out of and to dump them into the trash can. And so what you're doing here is significant, to take the waste coffee grounds and actually then grow mushrooms on that. I wonder, hey, do your mushrooms taste like coffee?
Yes, it really did. If you cook it with clean water, just boiling water, when you freshly cook, you actually have a little bit of coffee aroma. And to add on to the waste materials, to be honest, when you brew coffee, by whether it's individual or in the factory, when they process it into instant coffee, they actually utilize only about 99% of the coffee beans that you see are actually thrown away. You only utilize less than 1% of the coffee that you drink. And to add to that, coffee actually is the world's biggest or second largest commodity trader in the world. So there are a bunch of coffee waste being dumped away. And across all agriculture residues, there are more than 4 billion tons of agriculture residues being generated of all kinds of crops across the world annually. So which means basically we are chopping away the lifeline that we keep the earth going, and on the other side we are dumping away a potential cash. So there are definitely a mislink in between, and we are not doing enough. If not, we are not saying that we are not doing anything to link these two together. So there are definitely a lot of opportunities around. It's just that we are not doing enough in science discovery.
So
that's actually very interesting. Just quick question. Where do you source those coffee grounds? And in a way, does that help you reduce the cost as well?
Oh, basically, well, we are kind of fortunate because Southeast Asia's biggest instant coffee factory is actually like 2 hours drive away from my place. So it's very close, and you can't imagine how much coffee waste they are dumping away. Every day, 40 to 60 tons. And every truck we are getting from their factory is like 20 tons. One ton also means, which means one truck of coffee probably equals to 1 ton of coffee grounds probably equals to or more than how much coffee you can consume your whole life. Mountain of coffee grounds.
Terence, you brought up a really fascinating point about the percentage of coffee that is actually utilized in the coffee brewing process here. You said 1%, and I think that is significant, primarily because we are
1%.
1%, and there's the extraction of the aromatic oils and flavors in the brewing process of the coffee. And the reality is, what you do with the 90%, that is a significant issue in terms of the waste that's generated. And so yeah, like that is a definitely big issue.
Just a short note on the oil being extracted from coffee bean. Actually, coffee bean has about like 10% of the oil, which can be transformed into biofilm as well. But seriously, the cost of doing that is way too high, and you use a lot of chemicals to wash that out. So I'm not sure after you do that, you can still, what can you still do with the coffee grounds after you mix with so much of chemicals compound, and also the cost of doing that is seriously it's a sense, as oil price now is like 50. I think if we gonna if coffee bean oil will ever make any sense, probably the oil price has to be like 150. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit
Right.
about the sustainability piece here. There's the product that you were creating, and seemingly would be a byproduct. With the mushrooms would be, from the consumer side, will be the product, but really from your eyes, in terms of the Autopoetic labs, and maybe also want to talk a little bit about what do you mean by Autopoetic, because not everybody understands that too. Can you share a little bit?
Okay, autopoetic actually is a Greek word. So actually, it refers to a system of self-producing and self-reproducing and sustaining system. So we hope that we will have human food production industry goes back to what nature has been teaching us. It's supposed to be a closed loop. So every materials should have its own role in every part of the circle. But humans are like, every industry, we are throwing away all sorts of materials in the production line. So that's why in food, when we talk about food waste, like more than 40% of food being produced are being thrown away. So every part of the value chain, we are wasting a lot of stuff. So that's why we choose this what we call ourselves Autopoetic Lab. Is we want to have a vision of creating a system that we close the loop and mimic how the nature works, and stop wasting the resources that our Mother Earth is giving to us.
So absolutely, this is definitely a thought-provoking statement right there. So Sophia, let's talk a little bit about your work in investing and in agriculture. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So my involvement in agriculture and food before I moving into tech startups was more on the coconut tree side, and also later on a hybrid project between clean energy and farming. So I'll talk a little bit about these two projects. I was working at a boutique investment fund which operates and finances the whole value chain of agriculture and food. So basically, from acquiring farmland and growing the crop, manufacturing the end product, the product. Um, and as everyone knows, that um, like agriculture is actually a very water consuming business. It consumes 70% of the fresh water in the world according to World Bank. So all of the agriculture businesses uh, mostly have to locate close to a source of fresh water. And while we were looking at this coconut trees farm investment, we identified a location in Brazil close to Amazon River, which helps the coconut trees to grow. And then, of course, later on manufacturing the coconut water beverage and then distribute it in the market. And that brings to my second project, which I work with a KKR portfolio company in Australia, which the farm is innovating a way to solve the water problem because they use only one energy source, which is the solar power, and they convert solar power into three resources: electricity, heat, and fresh water by desalinating water. So basically, what they do is to build solar power and house by in the desert in South Australia by the ocean, and they use the solar power to factory to convert, receive and convert solar power into the electricity to power the greenhouses and convert the solar power to heating to control the temperature in the greenhouses to, of course, to help the crop yield. And the most important thing is that they also use the solar power to, through the process, to desalinate seawater and irrigate, uh, and to fetch water to irrigate the farm. I think this is a very forward-thinking and very innovative way to solve a major issue in the current farming sector by really creating a more sustainable agriculture play um, to right now the world face a really big issue, particularly in water.
So yeah, that's the desalination component of this entire issue with irrigation is significant. It's a dynamically changing issue in terms of water resource. Water resource is always a big issue in farming and agriculture as we know it, not just for food production in terms of growing fruit and vegetables, but also in animal husbandry, also in all the other parts for people who live on a farm as well. I mean, can you talk a little bit about the scale in which this desalination process was happening for the farms that you were working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So the the project I was working on are, well, apparently because of the building the greenhouses and factories from ground up, it's naturally a bigger scale project. So the investment was US 100 million US dollars, and they also work with local government to build to develop the project. But this is the one thing that I think that's also very interesting when it comes to innovation and how it can help not only a sector that's facing a major issue, but also in terms of job creation. Because uh, think about this, they were able to build solar power um, factory and solar power plant and greenhouses in the desert, which is a, a, a typical land that's not arable, not not uh, basically with zero value in the past. But now they are able to actually build to grow economic value on the desert land and start to recruit people around that neighborhood and create jobs to help the local economics, which I think is very fascinating when a lot of time people talk about technology and how it's taking away people's job. But in a way, when you also can use technology and innovation to not only solve the problem um, in the agribusiness sector and environment, but also at the same time to create jobs that helps local economics. I think that's the value. Uh, that's really the true value of innovation and why people should be always thinking about doing things in an innovative way.
That is absolutely a stunning statement to be doing things in an innovative way. And what you're talking about here is to bring food production to a place that is fundamentally inhospitable, in a desert, in the Arctic, like Ben Kenning is doing from the second webinar. And people are just doing things like, for example, the next trip to Mars. Where are you going to get water? Where are you going to get earth or a soil to plant your food? That is really a complex question, and the complexity of all the supply chains and value chains, not just supply chains, value chains in terms of resources, in terms of manpower, and then the flip side to that is the ability to create new jobs in renewable energy, to create new jobs in places that fundamentally people did not inhabit, that there was nothing there, and suddenly now this is of value. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
just one, sorry, just one quick point that I'd like to add because it goes back to the scale you were talking about. I think when it comes to innovation, a lot of time people talk about, innovation, people naturally link it to startups. I think that's mostly true because startups, well, the reason that you build startups is because you are building something new, something innovative, something that's not existing in the market, where you are doing a new way to build a different business. But I think so. Startups usually falls into the small scale category, but I think the two projects I was talking about, they are naturally a larger scale project, but they will still be able to be more innovative. And that goes to, I guess that's a good example to a lot of big corporations out there that, a lot of times innovation doesn't have to happen just around startup community, which is very good and very essential for the economy growth, but also for the big corporations in-house internally, they can think of different way to innovate their businesses, their all the challenges they are facing, and goes back to the nature of innovation we talk about. I think that's the key that can help any company and any sector to continue to grow.
Absolutely. So, Terence, in a sense, what Sophia has been talking about here is also very similar to what you have been talking about, the issue of deforestation and land clearing at massive scales just to build farms. Now, suddenly, we can maybe see in 10 years the deserts, the locations across, all the desert plains becoming probable farmland, what there was considered to be of no value, or at least no inherent value in its current state, perhaps there could be new ways. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, if funding is available, I was I was I was thinking about in Southeast Asia, in the open sea, there are a lot of oil tankers actually being abandoned on the open sea. If you go to the satellite, you can see dozens of them floating on the open sea. I was thinking about, come on, I mean, just let me grow mushrooms in the oil tanker. I mean, on floating on the sea, on the ocean. See, you don't even need to build a new greenhouse. I just need to fit in my sensors and my irrigation pipe. I can grow mushrooms in the open sea. And if you don't, even if you, I mean, why not just have me have you let me have the oil tanker, but you're just dumping on the open sea anyway. right? I don't need to spend, to build something, I mean, when we are building something new, which means we are consuming resources as well. Why not we just recycle all these materials or spaces that's already been eliminated by the human needs. This is no need, because they are already being kicked out by the market anyway. So find a ways to give them a new purpose. There are a lot of actually ways that we haven't actually looked into. There are definitely a lot of ways to grow more food to feed people, because we are not looking hard enough.
Yes, that is a very, very intriguing thought right there. The ability to take abandoned oil tankers and to refurbish them into a new way, a new place in the middle of the ocean to grow mushrooms. Absolutely, you can use solar power. You can run a desalination plant in there. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and the good thing is, mushrooms don't even need light. Mushrooms don't even need light.
Awesome.
Then this then we could totally spend hours debating this idea of what can you use mushrooms. You can use mushroom for food. You can make fabric now. You can make mushroom leather. There's so many things. But I want to kind of step back a little bit and talk about why we're doing these webinars. The reason why we're doing these webinars really here is to showcase perhaps the diversity of what you could explore in the next bootcamp in terms of the food life cycle and journey. It's not just what you see at the restaurant, what you see as an app or a service, but really how this whole global conversation about food and why it's so significantly important. As you know, the population around the world is rising, and the traditional ways to produce food are insufficient. And as a result of that, this is why we're starting the conversation now to solve this problem that is happening and will exceed our current food production in the next probably 20 years or so, right? And so, talking about solar, talking about irrigation, talking about water resources, I want to kind of take the focus now to Charles. Charles, are you there? Can you share a little bit about what you're doing with sun culture?
Yes, absolutely. So my company, Sun Culture, is based in Nairobi, Kenya, and we provide small-scale farmers with solar-powered irrigation systems. And in addition to the technological solution, which is a fairly simple submersible solar pump paired with a battery and a drip irrigation system, we also provide farmers with microfinance and support, technical assistance. And what we found is that working with small-scale farmers in East Africa, that technology is a necessary component in terms of increasing their productivity. But in addition to introducing new technology that's appropriate for the constraints of that area, as well as the ability to pay of small-scale farmers, we also have to loop in a whole array of services and support. So when you're doing a startup in the US, in the developed market, VCs will typically encourage you to concentrate on doing one thing and do that very, very well. And what we found was that we ended up having to be completely vertically integrated from the get-go. So Sun Culture does research and development in the US and Europe. We have manufacturing in China. We import into 8 countries in Africa. We do sales and service, distribution, and then of course we do the financing. And what we're seeing is that this integrated model is a great way to approach the lack of productivity that we're seeing in these markets. So typical small-scale farm productivity in Africa lags world averages by about 50%. And a big driver of that low productivity is lack of water. So when we look at a country like Kenya that has 5 million farms, roughly twice as many farms as exist in the United States, only 4% of those farms are currently irrigated. And that compares to less than 20% that are suitable for rain-fed cultivation. So much of our farms are in arid and semi-arid regions. So we have to ask, why are these farmers not irrigating? And that's because of the high cost of currently available irrigation methods. So most of the farmers who we work with, if they are irrigating at all, are using petrol or diesel engine pumps to pull water from a fairly shallow source, typically a river or a dam, and then they're using furrow or flood irrigation to provide water to their crops. And this costs a typical 1 acre small scale farmer about $1,200 a year in fuel and labor cost, which is incredibly expensive. And then in terms of water consumption, they're using between 40 and 50,000 liters per acre per day. So we come in with a solar pump that sells for a deposit of $100, and then we finance that on a $1 per day payment plan. And then we introduce them to drip irrigation, which is a type of micro irrigation that's very water efficient. And with that combined solution, instead of needing to spend $1,200 a year on fuel and use 40 to 50,000 liters of water per acre per day, they're able to go down to less than $400 a year in payments for the pump. And then after they pay the pump off, they own it outright. And then using the drip irrigation system, they're able to reduce the water consumption from 40 to 50,000 liters per day down to 5,000 liters per day. So we're looking at a model where we're able to significantly reduce the operating cost of a small-scale agribusiness and dramatically increase their resource use efficiency around their water consumption. And then we're able to improve their yield. So the traditional irrigation methods using these furrow or flooding techniques are very low yield. They tend to overwater the crops and reduce the nutrient holding capacity of the soil. So we're looking at somewhere between a 50 to 100% per season yield increase, as well as a significant cost reduction in terms of their input cost. Now, we start the farmers out with the solar pump, and then once they're able to make their payments and they repay that pump on the $1 a day payment plan, then we're able to refinance them. And because they have a credit history with us already, we have a good amount of data on what their ability to pay is. And using a program that we call Pay As You Grow, we're able to base smallholder input and asset finance on their cash flow, which is crop and seasonal dependent. So we have a microfinance model that really works around what is the productivity of that farm and how can we improve that by introducing more and more capital. So across the developing world, we're looking at a demand annually of about $200 billion for smallholder finance. And there's a supply currently of only $50 billion. So there's a $150 billion shortfall in terms of demand for credit for these small-scale farmers. So what we're looking to do is develop our credit models paired with appropriate technology, as well as the technical assistance, the agronomy support, such that we can dramatically increase the amount of debt available to lend to the small-scale sector. And I'll just end with one stat. In Kenya, we have 70% of the population is engaged in agriculture. So 7 out of 10 people are farmers. Only 1% of bank debt goes to the agricultural sector. So we're looking at a serious productivity gap that's dependent on addressing this financing challenge.
Wow, Charles, thank you for that. That is a lot of information that we'll need to unpack over the next few moments here. So not only is the Beyond Food journey talking about the actual agriculture situation in terms of food production, but also you're talking about banking and finance, and of course at the highest level, improving quality of life for people in Kenya and the African continent and everywhere else. I think that is a fantastic mission to be working on. Can you talk a little bit more about how you see this expanding across the world? What are your future plans in terms of how you see this growing?
Sure. So we're currently operational in 8 countries, all in East Southern Africa. We'll be opening up offices in West Africa within 12 months. Currently, we're working with about 2,000 farms. We're looking to increase that number to about 12,000 farms within the coming year. And so far, we're seeing quite a lot of adoption in terms of this combined approach. So, getting people started out on an affordable and reliable solar pumping kit that we can finance and we can collect data on, and then kind of scaling them up the productivity ladder as we're able to see how successful they are. But the constraints on scale are not demand. There are 500 million small-scale farms globally, most of which are in the developing world, most of which have constraints around resource use efficiency, water, energy, or huge population growth in these regions. We're seeing large amounts of urbanization, which means that we really need to increase the output of not just basic agricultural commodities, but also cash crops, so that people can really earn a livelihood and, as you say, increase their quality of life. But the constraint on adoption is capital.
Yeah,
so
yeah, absolutely.
Our business model is incredibly dependent on availability of debt, particularly debt that's available in local currency, so that we aren't exposed to foreign currency swings and having to implement hedges there. So as long as the private sector, in partnership with governments, whether that's local governments or donors who are coming in from Europe and the United States, are available to create pools of funding, then this is something that we see scaling quite rapidly.
Right. So, and just to recap a little bit about what you said just before, a bit earlier, you said they spend an average of $1,200 a year, and through your system, it's actually gone down by over $800 to $400 a year, and their water usage from 50,000 liters to 5,000 liters.
And just to clarify.
Yes.
Just to clarify on the price structure there, so that's a $1,200 recurring cost. Our solar pump is financed over a period of 12 months.
Wow.
So once they pay off that loan, their energy costs drop to zero with the lifetime of about 5 years on the system.
Wow, that is amazing. And in addition to that, then you talk about the yield increase 50% to almost 100% increase. That is fantastic. And I mean, it really brings to the point here that Sophia was talking about. How technology has the ability to change fundamentally and disrupt and perhaps provide new opportunities to people who traditionally haven't had these opportunities. And of course, as we all know, mobile finance in Kenya is a big thing. It pretty much leapfrogged the desktop and computing at a desktop and went straight to mobile. And now the major telecom provider is a bank, in for the lack of a better word. So how do you see all these integrative pieces coming together? And I would also say, a lot of times we focus on the problem, but even in order to get to the problem, you have to solve all the little other stuff around the problem before you actually can tackle the problem. I'll get back to you, Sophia and Terence. You guys are laughing. Charles, any final thoughts before I jump back to the other guys?
Yeah, so those are two excellent points. Building integrated business models is very capital intensive. It's very time consuming. Fortunately, in Kenya, like you mentioned, we are at a relative advantage in terms of the other countries in the region, and in terms of the infrastructure we have available to us. Just kind of backbone logistics. We operate in Kenya all across the country. Regions on the Somali border, up by Lake Turkana that are pretty inhospitable. And if we had to build out kind of the physical delivery infrastructure to get up there, it would be quite a challenge for us. But we do have partners in Kenya who are able to handle some of that logistics for us, which is really fortunate. And then of course, in terms of the payment management, M-Pesa is an absolute game changer, right? So we have, for those of you who aren't familiar, M-Pesa is a mobile money payment system that can work on any phone. So we're talking about a basic Nokia all the way up to the most sophisticated iPhone. And with USSD, we can send payments, collect payments from anyone, anywhere, at a cost of about 1% per transaction. So that's huge for us as a finance business. Because of course we have to go and manage all of our loans, and if we had to send collection agents out to go and collect payments on a weekly or monthly basis, our operating costs would be enormous. But because we're able to just have people basically send us payment by text message, and we can automatically unlock our solar pumping systems when the payments are topped up, we're able to be significantly more operationally efficient than we would be if we were operating in a market outside of Kenya.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So, just one final thing about that micropayments. Everybody talk about micropayments not going to work. Great example of it working. Okay, we'll get back to Sophia. I'm sure you have some thoughts on all that.
I was really fascinated by Charles' business. I think it's amazingly executed, and also with a combination of not just agriculture, but also like local banking, particularly in the emerging market. So I guess Charles' example brought a very good comparison between my past experience and his current startup, is that doing business in the developed world and in the emerging market can be, while you are doing both innovative business, the execution, and the parts you are sampling are probably a little bit different. For the project I was involved, I think it was more about how do you do the commercialized part, because of course the concept is great, and we were able to secure funding from leading private equity firms and also local government support. But the application part is really to optimize the energy conversion and to reduce the cost, so that the final product, which is the produce, we were doing tomatoes and other stuff, how do you make the price competitive enough that the people in the market would buy it? Because essentially your business has to make money. It has to be profitable to be able to sustain. Otherwise, all the sustainable business will not be able to sustain in the long run. And for us, the challenge for us is really trying to technology, optimize the energy conversion, reduce the cost, and to help the final product to be able to sell on the market, so that people can, the sustainable food be more available to everyone who agree with the mission.
Yeah, and absolutely great point, Sophia, right there. But the other part to that too is I wonder, is there a way to create a perhaps cooperative model where you have the business as well as perhaps the labor that are actually working not just for wages but also a share of the foods, and perhaps that may be the way of the future when we go to Mars, when we decide to colonize the bottoms of the oceans with seaweed and other awesome seafood. Terence, what are your thoughts on all these awesome and crazy ideas that we've been talking about?
Yeah, and I just want to echo Charles that really in developing countries or third world countries, we have a problem that we need to our work needs to scale almost across the whole value chain. It happens to us as well. This is one of the reasons that we face so many difficulties is because, okay, yes, we have already proven the materials can produce the mushrooms and has shown great potential to totally replace, but now problem has come. So because we're doing scientific solutions, we are building scientific solutions that we need to go back upstream to, to innovate and find the solutions on the seeds itself so that we can increase the yield gradually so that it at the end of the day it actually match the industry standard so that we can tell the whole industry that you can stop using and stop cutting forests and use whatever materials that we have a science discovery on that. That is just the first part. Then we need to fix the seeds. The second part is why we are developing, building IoT system is because we we cannot ask the farmer that because there are a lot of timers, irrigations, and weather factors that they need to comply with to so that they can get the best yield or using the minimum water. No way they can do that because they are simply not trained to do that anyway. So we need to build that IoT system, the sensors, do the calculations at the back end, the data, because there was no such data library before. So we need to build the data library. We need to even probably even need to manufacture our own sensors because there are simply no such sensors that we need. And one of the biggest problem is the endurance because sensors probably just can't endure more than a year on the moisture in the greenhouse. How do we fix that? And when we can do that, which means we need partner horizontally and vertically. And at our scale, that time, up until last year, is because probably our scale of production is just too small that it's hard to get partners who are producing seeds, who are producing sensors to work with us to build to our specs. So which means like we need to innovate from the very first seeds, then the sensors, then the data, then we need at the same time we need to produce mushrooms. Although we are selling a lot of mushrooms, to be honest, our mushrooms is selling like hotcakes. But the thing is, that is not really our product. Our product is actually the system that can produce that mushroom. So we were in the dilemma that should we go to continue our operations because we are getting big contracts in buying our mushrooms, but we are in a region that simply do not have the resources and human power to really go deep further into research on the seeds and building the system. So we just go back to why we go into this industry. We are not actually trying to become a farmer. So that's why we call it a day. We suspend the business at the point that we already start making money on the products that we have been producing for 2.5 years. But that is not our objective. We are not trying to become a farmer, but develop a new system, a new scientific way to produce the crops that we want the small medium farmers to produce. And we got our situation was like we scaled too big that we couldn't even handle it anymore. just like what Charles has been talking about. You need to handle almost every piece of the thing across the value chain, so that the farmer are willing to adopt your solutions at a price that is not too expensive, but at the same time producing the same yield, if not more, because that's the motivation for them to actually adopt your innovation. You gotta make their life better, make them make more money. At the same time, it's not costing them too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're really talking about here, abstracting out a whole lot and zooming out. There's technology, the tool, which are the tools. There's the innovation, which is the framework by which we interpret things and perceive. But fundamentally, I believe the big issue that we really need to solve in this food life cycle and journey is the paradigm shifts. That is to say, the thinking in the people in the region. How can they transition from a functional mindset to a global team-based exponential mindset? And that is absolutely what we teach at the Beyond Food Bootcamp. In fact, in all our bootcamps, that's what we teach. And we talk about fundamentally how can you transition from a small and medium enterprise into a innovation-driven enterprise, and that is a significant piece of this entire puzzle. I'm just gonna pull back to Charles. Charles, you were here last week at MIT. Before we get into questions, you were here for the IoT Bootcamp. Can you just share, a little bit about what you did as your project for the IoT Bootcamp?
Absolutely. First, I'd like to quickly echo what I think were two incredible points from both Sophia and Terence. Sophia's point about the long-term viability of an enterprise is dependent on the competitiveness of the commodity that's being produced. And this kind of gets us back to this question about how far along the chain do you want to be integrated? And as Terence was mentioning, in emerging markets, we have to create a full stack company, way more sophisticated and involved than we might in other regions. But we're finding that in order to guarantee the high repayment and overall portfolio health of our loans, that we need to work with the farmers to secure the market access component as well. So this is something that we're rolling out with a few partners on a trial basis in Kenya now. But we're definitely looking at that, and as we have significant production falling under the groups of farmers we work with, we're seeing that in some areas our farmers are actually significantly moving market prices based on their production. So we're looking at that as both an opportunity as well as a risk. And in some cases, we find that because farmers are using irrigation, and because we're providing them with the technical assistance, that they can actually shift their supply outside of peak supply periods, so that they're able to earn higher prices and higher margins, and contribute to overall increasing price stability in terms of basic commodities, which has, of course, economic impacts as well as positive impacts on the livelihood at the household level. And then Terence's point about connected agriculture, I think, feeds well into the question about IoT and the bootcamp, the MIT IoT bootcamp that I participated in last week, which was excellent. There's so much data that is sitting trapped on these 500 million smallholder farms, whether that's weather data or crop type, soil data, which we collect, micro, macronutrients, what type of seeds are being used, what's performing well, what's not performing well, pests, etc. And if we're going to really integrate these smallhold farmers into the global food supply chain, we need to be collecting a lot more data to ensure not just that we're conforming to food safety, but that we're also moving towards a higher level of efficiency and productivity.
And if I can stop you there for a second,
was great.
Charles, just 1 second.
Yeah.
There was a really pertinent question before we kind of move on to the IoT side of things. One of the questions was from Tadeo Taguma. He said, "I'm based in South Africa, Charles. How can we get involved in your project, and what kind of size is optimal for irrigation? What sizes do you work with?"
Sure. So we currently don't have a distributor in South Africa. So if somebody's interested in taking on that role, they can reach out to me, and I'll make sure that my email is circulated around. We work with a broad range. So our focus is below 1 hectare. So that's up to about 2.5 acres. That's where the majority of our customers are in terms of their land holding. But we've done projects up to 1,000 acres with governments in Ethiopia, Somalia, and Rwanda. So we do apply our solutions to kind of a broad range of small scale commercial, medium and large scale commercial, and then government organized projects.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about the IoT project that was really fantastic. I have a picture somewhere. I have to pull it up.
Oh, by the way, IoT and data science in
program.
agriculture.
Okay, crossover. So Charles, keep going.
Oh. Yeah, we had a great program last week. I really like the way that we worked through kind of all the different elements of developing an IoT platform with a focus on how important the architecture is. So thinking through the use case, understanding that you're going to be building potentially an architecture that could handle billions of data transactions a day within a pretty short period of time, and if you're not thoughtful in the way that you implement your architecture, you're going to end up with a really messy situation on your hands. But it was particularly relevant for us at Sun Culture because we are so interested in figuring out how do we get some of this data off of the farm. We didn't end up developing a product around our core business because you're looking at the boot camp is really just a way to make connections and learn new skills. What we developed instead was an ultraviolet spectroscope that's portable and it's very low cost. So for about $8, we can build a UV spectroscope that can tell us whether or not a cocktail has been adulterated. So our focus was on helping predominantly young women who are victims of sexual assault because they have consumed an alcoholic beverage that has some kind of date rape drug like Rufinol. And then our secondary focus was working with people in emerging markets who may consume counterfeit alcohol, like in countries like China, up to 30% of the alcohol that's consumed is an illicit brew. So we developed a piece of hardware, and then using some Arduino software, we're able to compare the data that we were getting from the cocktails that we sampled to expected baseline data, and be able to determine whether or not it looked like that beverage was safe to consume, and then connecting to a smartphone app so that the user would be able to get that information in a seamless way.
Yeah, so very, very fascinating project. I mean, honestly, to share a little bit about the boot camps that we run, there are the participants like Charles, like Terence. They blow us away with the stuff that they create. Terence created, and he brought samples of dried mushroom snacks. Imagine the next generation of Cheetos, except that it's all natural. And then, of course, Charles, you guys, your team blew us away. Team Lions, by the way, blew us away with the tester for fake alcohol and for drugs, illicit drugs in your drinks. But really, I want to get back to the questions that some of them have asked. Carmelo has said the main problem in my region is energy distribution, more than energy generation. Farmers live too far away from each other, and he's looking at using PV as a way, but it's challenging. Do you have any advice for that, Charles?
Yes, absolutely agree with that. Transmission and distribution of energy is incredibly costly. In Kenya, there is a dual World Bank and IFC program to increase household energy access for areas that are currently off-grid. And it costs them to connect a household about $1,000.
Wow.
Now, they subsidize that more than 90%. So the household ends up paying less than $100 for the connection. But when you look at the underlying costs, it costs us less than half to put up a solar panel and put up a battery and everything they need for reliable energy than it does to connect them to the grid, which of course is less reliable because we have brownouts, we have production problems. So what we're seeing is just the cost of renewables in the small-scale off-grid space is significantly cheaper than going with traditional thermal generation, transmission, and then distribution for exactly the reason that you mentioned, that the cost of last-mile distribution, because the household density is so low and the energy utilization is so low, that cost is so high on a per household basis.
Yes, well, thank you for that. We have run out of time for today. It's been an exciting and intriguing conversation. Terence, any last thoughts that you'd like to share, key takeaways?
Oh, I was just going to say, well, IoT and data science in agriculture industry is definitely a gold mine, and we are now waiting for more people to mine this gold. I'm not sure about Bitcoin, but this is definitely gold.
Cool. Sophia?
Yeah, just want to say it's been great to be here. Thanks for having me. I think the discussion we just had now is just an example of how you can really brainstorm ideas and get each other's answers through this kind of team discussion, which you will be getting at MIT Beyond Food Bootcamp, which I encourage everyone to apply. I didn't have a chance because I got my MBA degree, but I think it will be really beneficial for anyone who wants to start their business or they want to look for a more innovative way to do to continue what they're doing.
All right, thank you, Sophia. And Charles, back to you. Final thoughts.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for having me. This is fantastic. I echo Sophia. This is really important to kind of create opportunities for people to share ideas, ask questions, and I agree that the bootcamp is a great way to do that. And my experience at the Iot program was fantastic. You know, the agricultural supply chain is it is so complex, it is so long, it's so multifaceted. There are so many different implementations in different parts of the world. And one parting thought that I would leave is just that there are so many different opportunities for innovative companies, whether that's a two-person startup or a 50,000 employee Fortune 50 company, to come up with innovative solutions to address different parts of the agricultural supply chain. So I'm excited that this is a conversation that's getting higher and higher profile. It's getting more well capitalized. And looking forward to seeing the outcome of programs like the Bootcamp.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This is Andrew signing out for now from the MIT Beyond Food webinar series. Until the next webinar, we'll see you soon. Bye for now. Ciao.